Before my awakening, while I was still a bodhisattva, I decided to categorize my thoughts into two groups. In the first, I placed thoughts of sensual desire, ill will, and harmfulness. In the second, I placed thoughts of renunciation, non-ill will, and non-harmfulness. Dealing with unwholesome thoughts. As I lived in seclusion and diligence, whenever an unwholesome thought arose, I recognized that it leads to the affliction of myself and others, obstructs wisdom, and leads away from nibbana. Upon this realization, the thought subsided. I expelled these thoughts because I saw that they lead to countless unwholesome states. It is like a cowherd guarding cows near ripe crops. He must strike and restrain them with a stick because he knows that if they wander, it will lead to blame, punishment, and loss. I saw that same danger in unwholesome qualities and restrained them. The inclination of the mind. Whatever a person frequently thinks about becomes the inclination of their mind. If a monk dwells on desire, ill will, or harm, he loses the inclination for renunciation and his mind leans towards suffering. Such a person remains trapped in the cycle of birth and death. Cultivating wholesome thoughts. When thoughts of renunciation, non-ill will, and non-harmfulness arose, I saw that they cultivate wisdom and lead toward nibbana. While I could ponder these for a long time without danger, I realized that excessive thinking tires the body and disturbs the mind, which hinders concentration. Therefore, I steadied my mind internally and concentrated it to maintain stillness. It is like a cowherd after the harvest. Since the crops are gathered, he can simply sit at the root of a tree and remain mindful of the cow's presence. Similarly, I remained mindful of those wholesome qualities. The realization of liberation. With my mind purified and concentrated, I entered the 4 meditative absorptions. I then directed my mind toward the destruction of the taints. I understood the 4 noble truths as they really are, and my mind was liberated from the taints of desire, becoming, and ignorance. I knew with certainty that birth was finished and there would be no further state of being. The simile of the marsh. Imagine a marsh where a herd of deer lives. A man seeking their harm closes the safe path and opens a dangerous path with pits and watchmen, leading the herd to ruin. But a man seeking their welfare opens the safe, level path and removes the obstacles, allowing the herd to thrive. The marsh represents sensual pleasures, and the deer are all seekers. The one seeking harm is Mara, while the one seeking benefit is the Tathagata. The dangerous path is the eightfold wrong path, and the safe path is the noble eightfold path combined with wholesome thoughts. Final instruction. I have opened the safe path for you and closed the dangerous one. What a compassionate teacher should do for his disciples has been done. Here are the roots of trees and empty huts. Meditate. Do not be negligent, or you will regret it later. This is my instruction to you. The 3 true knowledges. In the Pali account, the Buddha provides a detailed, step-by-step description of 3 specific types of true knowledge: recollecting past lives, seeing the rebirth of beings according to their actions, and the destruction of the mental taints. The Chinese version moves more rapidly to the final goal. It focuses heavily on the transition from meditative absorption directly into the destruction of the taints and the realization of the 4 noble truths. Variations in the cowherd simile. Both versions use the imagery of a cowherd to illustrate the need for mental restraint, but they vary in their seasonal timing. The Pali text places the period of high vigilance, when crops are dense and the cowherd must use a stick for restraint, during the autumn. The Chinese version identifies this period as late spring. These shifts likely reflect the different agricultural cycles and climates of the regions where the texts were finalized. The marsh and the deer. In the simile of the marsh, which represents sensual pleasure, the 2 versions use different imagery for the obstacles placed by the evil one. The Pali version uses metaphors of hunting, describing a lure to represent ignorance and a decoy to represent delight and lust. The Chinese version uses more physical barriers, describing a great pit to represent ignorance and a watchman or sentinel to represent the followers of the evil one. The mind's inclination. The Pali text describes how the mind leans or inclines toward what it frequently thinks about. The Chinese version suggests that the mind finds its happiness or its home within those thoughts. This implies that the mind doesn't just lean in a direction, but established its sense of pleasure and comfort within habitual mental patterns. The sequence of the teaching. The Chinese text includes a specific emphasis on directing the mind toward the proper sequence of the teaching immediately after a wholesome thought arises. This highlights a systematic approach to ensuring that the mind does not merely rest in a pleasant state, but continues toward the non-arising of suffering.